It's not the flashy things, it's the little simple things that he does. It's his fundamental base combined with his skill base that makes him the greatest player to ever play.
And you say that without hesitation.
Without hesitation.
I respect Isiah Thomas's talent. To me, the best point guard of all time is Magic Johnson, and right behind him is Isiah Thomas. No matter how much I hate him, I respect his game.
When we talk about the fiercest rivalries in NBA history, a few names come to mind. Magic vs. Bird, Shaq vs. Kobe, and even LeBron vs. the Warriors dynasty. But perhaps no rivalry was as personal, as bitter, and as lasting as the one between Michael Jordan and Isiah Thomas. This was more than just a competition on the court. It was a battle for respect, for dominance, and for legacy. And even now, decades after their playing days have ended, the tension between these two Hall of Famers remains as strong as ever. But there was one moment, one rare, unexpected moment where Isiah Thomas, the same man who battled Michael Jordan with everything he had, the same man that despises him to this day, actually gave him the ultimate compliment. April 16, 2003. Michael Jordan plays his final game in the NBA wearing a Washington Wizards jersey. It wasn't the storybook ending most imagined. Jordan's Wizards were far from contenders, and he wasn't the same dominant force he once was. But regardless of how his career ended, Jordan's legacy was already cemented. And that's when it happened. Isiah Thomas, the man who had spent years trying to break Jordan physically and mentally, gave him the ultimate sign of respect. He said, and I quote, "In terms of my era and what I've seen and played against, he was the best ever. He was complete in every single area." This wasn't just some throwaway compliment. This was coming from a man who had every reason to dislike Jordan and had been in the trenches against him, who had literally been denied a spot on the dream team allegedly because of him, and he went out of his way to say this. So for Isiah to say definitively that Jordan was the best ever, that actually really meant something. To understand why that moment was so significant, we need to rewind to the late 80s. Back then, the Detroit Pistons weren't just a good team, they were a nightmare for anyone who stood in their way. They called themselves the Bad Boys for a reason. They played a brand of basketball that was borderline violent, using physicality and intimidation to beat teams into submission. And their favorite target, a young Michael Jordan. You see, they had a game plan for him, something that would go down in history as the infamous Jordan rules. Every time he drove to the basket, he was hit, and hard.
Michael goes to the basket, put his ass on the ground. And I put his ass, once he got there, you gotta hit him. You gotta hit him. I mean, every time he went to the basket, we hit him.
As soon as he steps in the paint, hit him.
Are you willing to be injured to score a basket?
No easy baskets, no momentum. The Pistons made sure that if Jordan was going to score, he was going to feel it the next morning. And for 3 straight years, the Pistons kept Jordan and the Bulls from reaching the NBA Finals. They were his biggest roadblock, his biggest frustration. But in 1991, the tide finally turned. Jordan had figured them out. He had bulked up, improved his game, and finally led the Bulls to a dominant sweep of the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals. What happened next only added fuel to their rivalry. Instead of shaking hands and showing sportsmanship, Isiah Thomas and the Pistons walked off the court before the game even ended. No handshakes, no congratulations, just pure bitterness. To Jordan, this was the ultimate sign of disrespect, and he never ever forgot it.
Whatever he says now, you know it wasn't his true actions then. It's time enough to think about it. Or the reaction of the public that's kind of changed his perspective of it. You can show me anything you want. There's no way you can convince me he wasn't an asshole.
If you thought their rivalry ended on the court, you'd be sorely mistaken. Then we fast forward to 1992. The USA was assembling the greatest basketball team ever, the Dream Team. It had every legend you could think of. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, and of course, Michael Jordan. But one name was missing, Isiah Thomas. To this day, many believe that Jordan played a direct role in keeping Isiah off the team. Some say Jordan gave an ultimatum, either Isiah's out or I'm out. Jordan later denied this, saying, "I didn't have anything to do with it."
I never threw his name in. Based on the environment And the camaraderie that happened on that team, it was best harmony. Would Isiah made a different feeling on that team? Yes. You want to attribute it to me? Go ahead, be my guest. But it wasn't me.
But the reality is, multiple people, including Scottie Pippen and Magic Johnson, have said otherwise. The decision to leave Isiah off the team was not purely basketball related, it was actually personal. And for Isiah, that was a career-defining snub. He had won 2 championships, was one of the best point guards of all time, and yet he was left at home watching while his peers made history. The bitterness between him and Jordan only grew from there. For years, their feud seemed to simmer in the background. They weren't friends, but they weren't actively taking shots at each other either. But that changed in 2020 when The Last Dance documentary aired. Throughout the series, Jordan openly mocked Isiah, bringing up the handshake incident and essentially painting him as a sore loser. Isiah, not one to stay silent, fired back in multiple interviews. He said, and I quote, "I don't care what anyone says. I know I'm a top 5 point guard in history. The way I see it, they're still trying to rewrite history and I ain't going for it." And just like that, their rivalry was in front and center again and for the world to see. Even decades later, neither man was willing to let go. The reality is, these are 2 of the greatest players the game has ever seen. Isiah Thomas was a 2-time champion, a finals MVP, and one of the most skilled guards of his era who was ahead of his time. And Michael Jordan, well, we know what he became, arguably the greatest player we've ever seen. But the sad thing is, even after all these years, there's no resolution. Some rivalries in sports eventually heal. Magic and Bird became close friends after their playing days. Shaq and Kobe patched things up before it was too late. Even Isiah and Magic had a sit down. But Jordan and Isiah, that seems like a bridge that will never be rebuilt. And honestly, it's a real shame. For all their battles, for all their intensity, these 2 men made each other better. Without the Pistons, maybe Jordan never becomes that guy. Without Jordan, maybe the Pistons' championships aren't as respected. Fundamentally, in this way, they needed each other. But the wounds are too deep, there's too much pride, there's too much history. Could they ever sit down and talk things out? Maybe. But let's be real, Jordan is known for holding grudges. Isiah is known for never backing down. So while we might never see them bury the hatchet, what we can do is appreciate the history they gave us. Because at the end of the day, rivalries like this, they don't actually come around often. And that's what makes sports truly unforgettable. But what do you guys think? Will Isiah and MJ ever put their differences aside? Or is this one beef that will just last forever? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this one, make sure to like and subscribe because we're coming up with new videos every week. Thanks for watching. I'm Damian Peters and this is Basketball Network, and I'll catch you in the next one.